Welcome back to Sissy Maya. Make sure to subscribe to our channel to never miss an update. Additionally, consider subscribing to my Patreon to get access to these features, and much more.
A year ago, if someone had told me I'd end up in this situation, I would have laughed. I should still be upset with my sister, but since I'm stuck like this, we've agreed to a truce. She genuinely feels remorseful about the permanence of the situation and has been very supportive as I adjust to my new life. What began as simple sibling rivalry quickly spiraled out of control. I was 3 years younger than Akari, my sister. She believed younger sisters were meant to cause trouble, so I made it my mission to fulfill that expectation. We were both very clever, which led to increasingly elaborate pranks. It all began when Akari was running late for a concert. I swapped her boots with those of our robot maid. Watching her face when I remotely took control of her ability to walk was priceless. Just as I was about to get her out the door, Mom and Dad heard her cries. I would have loved to see her perform at the concert, but for 2 weeks, I was grounded from all technology as punishment. During those 2 weeks, it became clear that Akari was plotting her revenge. One day, while waiting for the grape polish on my fingers to dry, I noticed they had fused together. I could still grip things, but I couldn't wiggle my fingers. When I sniffed the polish bottle, I detected a hint of superglue. After Dad used a laser to separate my fingers, Akari had to buy me any piece of expensive makeup I wanted. I retaliated by using a computer virus to erase her diary and her address book of all the guys she'd dated. In response, she snuck into my room while I was asleep and dyed my hair blue. It looked like something out of a Japanese animation, which, at least, matched my blue eyes. She even used a toy plastic surgery kit to make my eyes look like the exaggerated ovals seen in Japanese cartoons. I had to wait until the dye faded, but Mom made Akari restore my eyes to normal. Inspired by something I read online, I devised a plan. I waited until just before the winter dance. Mom had bought Akari a tight girdle that made her look half her size. While she was in the shower, I snuck into her room and used the same glue from the nail polish prank to secure it inside the girdle. At the dance, halfway through, Akari needed to use the restroom. When she went into a stall, she discovered the girdle was firmly glued to her skin. She tried to hold it together, but when her boyfriend brought her more punch, she couldn't hold it and ended up making a mess on the floor. Mom and Dad had to use a similar method as they did with me to dissolve the glue before they could help her out. She was so embarrassed that she stayed home for a week before facing her friends at school. I spent that week grounded at home and cleaning the school grounds after classes each day. Akari promised she'd get even. I thought she was bluffing until I realized she had a plan. As the first one up each morning, Akari was in charge of breakfast. In April, she started serving us both energy shakes. They tasted odd, but I figured she was just on some kind of health kick. In mid-May, I noticed that my pointers seemed to be a lot bigger than my sisters were at my age. I also noticed that the fuzz that I had grown on my face was disappearing. I was finding my joints stiff in the mornings and it would take some time before I could move normally. I noticed one morning that my skin tone seemed to fade. Although worried, I figured once summer came and I started getting some outdoor exercise, everything would be okay. The next day I woke up and found myself staring at the ceiling. I could neither move my eyes or blink. My entire body was completely stiff. Akari came into my room with a smile on her face as she pulled off my sheets and revealed my toes were fused together. She then rolled me over on my stomach and inserted a butt plug into me. She rolled me back and rubbed my Barbie doll. I could only watch helplessly as she pulled out a rod on a glass-wheeled platform. I felt very light, being lifted up and planted on the pole. "Wondering what I'm going to do with you, sis?" Akari asked. I watched as she moved a mirror around me so that I could see how feminine I looked. Terrific. I thought to myself, I can't even call out to Mom and Dad. I could rent you out to a local store, she said as she moved back in front of me. I'm sure Mom would notice you missing. That's why nanits you had in your shakes have the function of verbal control. You'll be my own little robot servant. I don't think so, is what I wanted to say as my body moved on its own to a table. What came out, however, was I'd be happy to help you out in any way I can. Very good. A smile spread across her face as she lifted me off the rod and back on the floor. Under her owners, I went over to my dresser and sat down with my hands on my lap. I stared helplessly at my image in my makeup mirror. With the use of the mirror, I could see her going through my closet. Under her orders, I found myself sliding a pair of nylons up my legs. I then pulled on a tank bodysuit over my pantyhose. My privates felt hot by the sensuously smooth layer that fitted like a second skin. I figured that Akari didn't want Mom and Dad to notice that my chest remained up without the aid of any support. When the tube suit was on, a shirt and pair of pants hid as much of my shinny skin as possible. My pants made my privates heat up ever more. The four-way stretch and seamless bodice allowed me to move any way she demanded. Dinner is great, Mom. I found myself saying that night at the table. Only one of a series of pre-programmed topics that found myself forced to talk about that night. Conversations that was designed to our parents fooled to my fate. The next morning, I was forced to make Akari's bed and wishing I could tell Mom what had happened to me. She was just glad to see us getting along so well for a change. Thought it was big of me to become so helpful to my sister. When Akari wanted to privacy, she sent me to my room. I was laying in bed, wondering if I was going to spend all of my free time staring at the ceiling from now on. I found myself sitting up when she came in my room and saw tears in her eyes. Mom and Dad was with her. She apologized again and again for doing what she did to me and saying that she told Mom and Dad when she learned it couldn't be reversed. It was when Akari was overheard in her room that I was put in freeze mode and rented to the nearest department store. She was yelled at. Our parents did some research. That was when they learned that the effects to me were permanent. That was when she started to feel sorry about what she did to me and brought Mom and Dad to my room. She told me to take a nap while she called the family doctor about what to do. Dr. Anderson, the family physician, was an expert in both bio and cybertechnology. Mom had to let Akari come, since her voice commanded my body's movements. She was needed to order me to remove my clothes before I could be examined. As I laid on my back, I could hear the hollow sound my body made when he tapped on me. The erotic sensation that still washed over me when he touched my chest. When it was over, Akari had been asked to order me to get up and dressed. As embarrassed as I was, my face could not express any emotion of my true feelings. I just sat up with my legs dangling over the side of the table as the doctor took the others out of my hearing range. It was obvious that the doctor had a bunch of questions to ask them. All things considering, she's in excellent health. I heard the doctor say with a fake smile. But there is no way science currently knows to remove the microrobots from her bloodstream. Since Akari has control of her actions, she can order her to act like she used to before the program was introduced. Mom drove us to school and dropped me off at junior high before bringing my sister to her high school. She wanted to make sure that she didn't give me any embarrassing commands. I was dressed in a body shaper that seemed to increase my cleavage, and blue shirt dress with several buttons and stockings and shoes that matched. Since my chest had already grown quite a bit during the past month, my friends didn't notice anything different with me. Neither did my teachers. I had an excuse from gym class so I wouldn't have to disrobe and reveal my fused toes or how glossy my skin really was. By the time the junior high and high school proms came about, I was used to how incredibly sensitive my skin had become. At school, the novelty of my shiny face and hands had worn off. I no longer had to avoid any questions about it. The way the clothes rubbed on my smooth, plastic-like body was really erotic. Before Akari turned my body into a robot, the guys ignored me. Now I was up to, well, whatever in them. My first dance was incredible. Brad touched me as we danced and sent surges of pleasure through my being. I was so on fire that I was like a living volcano. My date really knew how to make me feel light on my feet. I wasn't even mad about Akari turning me into being more robot than human. She still had me do her hair for her dates and vacuum her room. She still let me be myself and jump Brad's bones whenever I got the chance. Sometimes Akari and her date would make me play sandwich with them and my date. Not that I really mind. The best part is that I never get tired and find myself aroused and able to orgasm at the drop of a hat. I'll have to remember to thank her for my transformation someday. Someday that I have a free moment between school and love.